Welcome to Authentically You, the podcast where we explore the intersection of spirituality and success in the world of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Maleia Evans, and today we have an inspiring story to share with you. Meet Lindsay Ennis, a woman of unwavering faith, a visionary entrepreneur, and a dedicated follower of Christ. Not only does she own a thriving clothing boutique, but she's also delving into the world of short-term rental real estate investment. In our visit with Lindsay, we'll dive deep into her journey from the early days of her boutique, where she combines her passion for fashion with her dedication for spreading God's message of love and acceptance, to her bold leap into real estate investment, guided by her trust in God's plan for her life and her businesses. Join us as we uncover the challenges she's faced, the triumphs she celebrated, and the faith that has anchored her every step of the way. Get ready to be inspired, encouraged, and empowered to pursue your own dreams with faith as your compass and courage as your guide. This is Authentically You, where faith meets entrepreneurship and where every venture is grounded in the belief that with God, all things are possible. I'm Maleia, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you on the inside. Are you looking to start or grow a business in Northwest Tennessee? If so, the Mill Workspace Entrepreneur Center is the starting point for business in our region. They offer one-on-one counseling for startups and growing businesses as well. They also offer educational one-time workshops and multi-week business acceleration classes for all Northwest Tennessee residents. Whether you're thinking of starting a small retail business or you're looking to scale an e-commerce business nationwide, they are there to help. If you're ready to get started, you can schedule an appointment on their website at themillworkspace.com. When I want super friendly service and a great selection of apparel and gifts for either myself or my husband, the Mustard Seed in Dyersburg, Tennessee is one of my first stops. Lindsay Ennis and her staff, aptly called The Seeds, are always so helpful and they have really great fashion advice. The gift selection is always a wonderful source when you need just the right gift for that special someone or special occasion. Stop by the Mustard Seed, located in the Commons in Dyersburg, Tennessee, on your next shopping adventure, or shop with them online through Facebook and Instagram by visiting themustardseedtn.com. Authentically You listeners can benefit from the exclusive code AUTHENTIC15 to get 15% off your purchase at the Mustard Seed now through the end of May. Lindsay, I'm so excited that you're here today. This is so much fun. You are the third podcast. You're the third episode of the new podcast, Authentically You, and I just can't thank you enough for being willing to participate and jumping into this with me.
Yes.
We're gonna either fail greatly or we're going to succeed humbly.
Yes.
That's my hope.
We'll do it
So,
together.
We'll do it together.
Either
We'll do it
way,
together.
yes.
But I'm just honored and really appreciate you taking the time today to share your story. And so let's start the conversation that way.
Okay.
Tell me the story of Lindsay and of your journey as an entrepreneur. And let's start with the Mustard Seed, and then we'll go in a few minutes into a new adventure that you're taking.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know my background is actually in physical therapy. That's what I did for a living. That's what my degree is. And I had a consignment store, and I wanted to start putting new items in that. And so I did. And it flourished. And so then in January that year, I thought I'm going to open up something new and just do new, let the consignment go aside. And on my couch one night, there was some friends over the house and just trying to name it, and I kept Googling things and I kept coming across Matthew 17:20, and it was faith of a mustard seed.
Oh, wow.
And so that's kind of where the name came about. And I had already started ordering things at that point, and it was the height of selling on Facebook. Facebook used to be only for colleges, and so I had it from where I was in college, but then it was like open to everyone, and you could buy things and hold them on there, and it was great. And so we just rode that out, and it became such a blessing quick. When I opened the store, it was really as a form of giving back to the community. I never thought that I would not do therapy anymore. It was not a thing, and I actually did. For 4 years, I worked full-time doing physical therapy and had the store. And it wasn't until a point I thought, what am I doing? Like, this is really where God's called me to be. And so
did you find people questioning you about what you were doing? Because I'm finding that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not giving up my day job. I love my day job. But this is something that's important to me. And it's something I feel led to do.
Yeah.
And it's going to be another vocation for me.
Yes.
But I have so many people that are, questioning,
Yeah.
why are you trying to do the two at the same time? Because they're so opposite from one another.
Yeah. I think that God put so much different things in you, and you have to follow those, but one can feed the other. Like for me, physical therapy really wasn't where my heart was, but it was what was paying my bills.
Right, same.
And so it allowed me to go into a career that my heart was in and to give back and to do those things without having to worry about my house payment,
Right.
And so, and it wasn't until a point to where I was completely comfortable in the income that was coming in that I let the other go.
Yeah.
And someone asked me the other day, they said, did I retire my license? Would I go back and ever do therapy again? And it's no, because I've moved past that point in my life, and I would do something different that God was calling me to do at that point. And I think, it's just, you always want to grow.
Right.
Change is growth. Fear is growth. Pushing yourself is growth. And so this is your growth,
Right.
and you have to step out. And I think anytime you're growing and you're stepping into spotlight and you're stepping into those things, you are going to have people pointing fingers at you, and you're going to have people that say that you can't do that.
Right.
And I think that being women like we are, that's just like another stepping stone to climb up there and say,
like, don't tell
watch
me I can't.
me.
Don't tell me I
Watch
can't.
Yeah. Because I'll do it.
That's the challenge call for me. Don't tell me that I can't.
Yes.
Because I really might not be able to, but I'm going to have to prove to myself that I
Right.
can't. I don't want you telling me that I can't.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly.
And I don't mean that like in a snotty way.
No,
I just mean
no.
that as I am defined by what God says that I am and what God says that I can do, not what man says.
Yes.
And I just constantly have to remind myself
Yes.
of that, because I lived a lot of years pursuing what Maleia wanted.
Yeah.
And what Maleia was telling herself that God wanted for her.
Yes.
Not what God wanted for her. And it has been such a different life. I don't live in the regret. I don't live in regrets, but gosh, the things, the years that I wasted,
Yes.
and the joy that I lost, not living in what God was purposing me for. Gosh, darn it.
And I think that those years have a reason, and they have, if anything, they're going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
And just prove to yourself that if I can come through all of that,
Yeah.
then I can come through this. And if God's putting me here, then there is nothing that's
Yeah.
going to stop me from doing it.
Yeah.
So
So what's the most valuable lesson that you learned being a small business owner here in a small rural community? Because that's a different ball game in a rural community than it is in a bigger city.
It
And
is.
you touched on too the importance of your startup, and your entry to market was during a time frame when online selling was it. I mean, it was all the rage, and so many boutique style businesses and retail style businesses launched during that era. And we've kind of seen that pivot, which I think is really funny. You would have thought something like a pandemic that shut everyone into the cyberspace
right.
would have forced more of that.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that it has not
Right.
forced more than that.
For me, I guess, it's a two-part valuable lesson. The first thing, I guess, is people matter. You cannot be in your own, as you said, in Maleia's world. Like for me, whether it is the community and community involvement, or customers or employees, they are all so valuable and they matter to me. Their presence matters to me. Giving back matters. Treating them well. I have amazing staff support.
I love that you call them your seeds.
My seeds, they're my girls, and Cooper. But they are.
I can't believe he's big enough now to be modeling.
I know. It's crazy. But it's just, you've got to have respect for them and building that relationships. I feel like in any venture, whether it's retail or anything, people buy you.
Yes.
And so if you position yourself of value and valuing relationships and valuing people, they will come. Yeah. For me, it was immediately diving into the community and saying, where do you need me? I don't care if I'm making barbecue sandwiches for the Community Cancer Fund, if I'm building a porch, or if I'm donating money, or if I'm setting, whatever I needed to be doing, I wanted to be doing, because I felt like if I poured myself into them, then they would come back to me. When they needed that gift or they needed a new shirt, they would come to me, and they did. And the second part of that is kind of the flip side of that is you are not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and to be okay with that. Even in this podcast, there's someone that's probably going to listen to the first 10 seconds and they're going to turn it off because it's not their cup of tea, and that's okay.
Yes.
Because we're not here for everyone.
Right.
But for that woman that is wanting to dive into more and to learn herself and to do what God's calling her to do, then they will listen. And that's what we're here for.
Right.
And I think that was a hard lesson to learn in the beginning. I was young. I'm in my 11th year, and I'm still young. And so I was really young when I started. You wanted to please everyone, every customer, every person that asked for help, and you simply cannot.
Right.
And so being okay with that.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to remember, too, a real important lesson, and any lady who is sitting out there on your couch or in the pickup line at school, and you've got this driving desire to do something. Mm-hmm. You're good at something that you could monetize, to earn a little extra income for yourself or to make it a full career. Right. Your family and your immediate friends are not your customers.
Yes.
You don't even know who your customers really are. They are in other parts of the world, probably.
Yes.
Definitely not probably living in your house. And I think that's so important to remember, is that there is a world outside of the county lines where you live. And don't lock yourself in to this geographic mindset that this is where God put me, so this is where I am supposed to be, and these are my people. And that is true to some degree, but if you've got the desire to be an entrepreneur in whatever it is, baking bread, weekly.
Which is a new thing now,
I think. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's breaking bread.
And
I just want to buy mine at the farmer's market.
And I wish he would stop.
Because then I eat it.
And so it's a new thing. But whatever it is, if it's God purposes us for different things at different times. And I think that's kind of the message I've been having to help people who love me understand, is that I'm not shifting gears into something that is not what has always been my calling. Economic development is my vocation. It always has been. It's where my skill sets are vocationally. But that doesn't mean that's all God intended for me to do.
Right.
He may be calling you, may have called you all these years to be a stay-at-home mom, but he may now be calling you to not be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
You've got to evolve.
Right.
You've got to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
So what drives that entrepreneurial spirit of yours? Because, girl, you have dipped your toes into an entirely different sector of business here recently, and that is so exciting.
Yes.
It was the reason that I asked you and invited you to be on this episode, because I wanted to touch base a little bit about women in real estate.
Yeah.
I'm not talking necessarily about realtors. I'm talking about women who are investing in real estate.
Yes. I think that if you are a woman that is even thinking about doing something, then it's in you. And I think that that's born into you. God puts those things into you. And for me, I'm the type of person, when something pops into my head and I think, okay, is God telling me that this is what I should do? I can't leave it alone. I'm going to climb 14 mountains backwards if I have to get there. And, that is a blessing and a curse in some ways, because I can't eat, sleep, or breathe without focusing on it. And so for me, where did that entrepreneur spirit come from? I really think, outside of it being born into me, was my mother. Growing up, she always worked very hard and held at least 2 jobs most of my life. But she also pushed me from a different angle. Whereas like growing up, she never asked me to receive report cards. It was just known that you were going to succeed with them, or whether that was sports or anything like that. It was challenging, but she let you know if you were going to do something, you better do it well. Mm-hmm. And so that's just how I grew up. And even like in high school, I was telling somebody the other day, I made handmade jewelry and sold it out of my backpack in high school. Like I was like, this is something that's been a long time for me. It was like when girls wore beads on hoops, and I would make the different beads to sell on hoops. And so I ordered like a ton of hoops online, and I would sell the hoops for $5 and then sell each. And they had a different color for every outfit. So every day somebody would come to school and they need a new color. Mm-hmm. And so I was selling these for $5 for 2 beads.
Hustling in the high school.
I was hustling out of my backpack. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I don't know. But at that point, I was like, and that was on top of working. I mean, my senior year in high school, I worked 40 hours a week. So I was just, work has been something that's always been a love for me, a passion for me. And setting a goal and making it to that is a passion for me. And I feel like that, that's kind of where it came from.
And I think that's so funny because I think it's kind of a generational thing too, because we're not that close in age.
Yes.
We're not.
Oh,
I'm a little bit more your senior, but I grew up with wonderful parents who busted their tails to provide everything that we needed and most of the time wanted. But my dad, God love him, refused to let me work in high school. He used to tell my mom every time I would say anything about wanting to get a part-time job, let her be a kid while she's a kid. And I'm not real sure where that whole paradigm shift happened with parents wanting their children to work or letting their children work. But it's really interesting that there are a lot of people my age who say the same thing, that their parents did not want them being entrepreneurs. Now, I guess I could have been hustling out of my backpack and I didn't know it.
You could. And I even have a Hobby Lobby then.
Oh, gosh.
I know, right?
Oh, gosh. Tell us a little bit about the cottages.
Yes.
Just give a plug for the cottages right quick.
So that came about, and you probably do this too, you listen to other people speak.
Yes.
And I think that's where, you learn from and find new ideas. And I listen to a lot of people like Grant Cardone and things like that always are investing in property. And that's something I've always heard, like, there's only so much land, all of this come about. And I have a love for the lake, and it is a place that I can find peace. And so my aunt and uncle had a piece of land, and I knew I wanted it. In the beginning, I was going to put a builded triplex on it. And I don't know. It was just, for a while, I kept hitting these closed doors, like trying to get contractors, trying to get permits and leases and things like that. And I just kept hitting these doors. And one day I was driving and I had prayed over the land, and I had passed this place out on the highway there that sold these tiny houses.
They're beautiful.
100 times. I've passed it 1,000,000 times. I don't know. And I pulled in, and immediately I had such peace about it. And I knew that day that I was going to buy 3 of those houses. I didn't know how. I didn't know how in the world. I figured the bank was going to be like, you're going to do what? But I knew, and it came about so quickly. From that day, within 60 days, I had permits, septic, houses set, concrete, ready to go, electric, everything. And I mean, that's unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah, and they are beautiful too.
They're beautiful. It was just such a great process the whole way. And I do think finding good people to help you with, and people that I was 2 hours away. And so I trusted the contractors that would come, even the concrete guys. Like, I called this man one morning super early and I was like, I want to write Bible verses in the concrete. So I need you to let me know when you're going to pour it. And he's like, do what? I said, he's like, my beautiful, pretty comment. So yes, I'm gonna put some writing in it, probably with a stick. I don't know. And so he did. He's like, I'm pouring the first one at 5 a.m. I was like, I'll be there. And so I was just so purposeful about the things. I had a great vision for it, and God was with it the whole way. It's unheard of to do things in such speed as that came about. And And then it was just putting them online, and people have came. And so,
You've even been voted the super host already, right?
Yes, yes.
Not even a year into?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic.
I am a super host. And then I just got guest favorite on Airbnb is another method. And I'm currently working on my own platform to privately book out where people cannot have to go through all of those hoops. But it has just been a complete blessing. It's so different than anything I have done. And part of that was actually recently on February 8th, I had been to a short-term wealth conference in Nashville. And I just knew immediately that I was in the wrong place. I was not equipped to be there. I didn't understand even what the workshops were, the meeting. I was trying to Google the names, and I went with a lady I didn't know who now I value so greatly, and she's a realtor out of Clarksville. And I had left that conference on Wednesday, taking a midnight flight to Atlanta because I also have another job, and market was right then. And so got to the hotel super late, and I'm just praying. I'm like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I have invested in these properties. I'm trying to learn. I have this crazy desire to want more, and I want them now. And I don't want to wait until I've paid these properties off. I want more, and I don't know how to do that. And I'm pretty sure the bank over here is going to tell me that now is not the time to do that. But
not your season.
So I just prayed and prayed and prayed until I went to sleep. And so I was leaving the airport the next day, and this man comes up to me, and, you know, I had said at this point, you know, I know what the Bible says about prophets and those sort of things, but I had never experienced anyone speaking word into me to this way. And this man comes up to me, and he's looking so deeply into me.
Stranger?
Yes.
In the airport in Atlanta,
which is not a full on Jesus feeling place.
Right.
You know, I'm just going to throw that out there. And so, and he's looking so deeply into me. His pupils of his eyes were so dilated. And I said, "Can I help you?" And he didn't say anything. And I said, "Do I know you?" I thought, you know, have I done something, you know? And he said, "You don't know me, but I need to tell you that you're going to do those things." Well, I immediately just start hysterically crying because I mean, when I tell you I prayed that night before, I mean, I laid it out there. And I knew that's what he meant. And I said, you know,
he had no idea.
No.
But he did not know you. He had not heard you on the phone
and
talking to somebody about.
I wasn't on the phone because I was rushing to get to the foot massage place.
So this man had zero.
He had zero. And he wasn't there. Like he was a nice looking, well-dressed man in his 40s in Atlanta airport, had luggage, but it's like he didn't know what he was saying to me. And so he says, "You have got to keep praying about it." And I was like, "I did. I've been praying. You know, I prayed so hard." And he said, "Then you've got to listen." And I was like, and it just, I mean, it hit me. And I was so overwhelmed. I thought, am I losing it? Like, am I going crazy? I need to call a help hotline.
Was he a bot?
I know. You know, it was so crazy. Like, I immediately call my parents, and I'm like, okay, I need to tell you what happened, and I need to tell you before I'm getting on this plane because I'm also hysterical.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot stop crying.
That would freak a lot of us out. Even faith-based believers.
Yes,
that would
it
still
did.
freak a lot
I just
of us
had
out.
never experienced it in my life. And so they're like, no, if God's trying to tell you something, he's going to use whatever vessel. Like if you're not listening and he wants you to listen, he is going to continue until you listen. And if that means sending a stranger in the Atlanta airport where you can't say that was anything else, because if that would have happened here, I'd be like, oh, they know me or they know what I'm doing. This man did not know me. He didn't scare me. He had purposeful words for me. And so at that point, I come back home and I'm like, how can I focus on what God's calling me? And that was naming 2 of my amazing staff as managers in my store so that I can pull myself out of there some.
That was a big step. I
knew
when you made that announcement, I was really kind of surprised.
It was letting go of that control of that is my baby too, you know, and I'd have, and I love every piece of it, whether it's the people or FedEx and UPS coming every day and being in that office. But when I go in there, that's the hat I put on that day. Mm-hmm. And I've got this urge for these other hats to wear. And so these women, they know me like the back of their hand. I said, if something were to happen to me today, I would trust them to make the right decisions that I would make because they know me so well. Like, why am I not putting them into the position that I really feel that God's put them in? He put these women in this position in my life. And I think that that's something that we as women need to observe and be aware of, is who's God putting in your life that you need to use to help you along the way, because you cannot do it alone.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one for me. That was the whole reason for the fight for 4 years over this. And was that I thought I had to do every bit of it myself. And I didn't know anything about the technology. I don't know the first thing about these microphones or where to get them. Or the cords that are hooked to all these devices.
I'm not even for sure how to talk directly.
Your viewers can't see all of that that's going on around me. And I knew nothing about any of that. But, it's kind of a similar situation. A wonderful man that's behind the scenes that you guys can't see is making all this happen. And I met him right here in this beautiful venue a few years ago. And we passed in the door as co-workers here at the Mill Workspace, and really never had much conversation or anything. But I knew that if I was going to do this, and that this was what God really needed me to do, I knew that the whole reason he had me run into Alan all those years ago was for this, was for a moment such as this.
Yes.
A moment such as this.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think just utilizing the people that God put in your path and trusting that they will do the right thing and letting that go has allowed me to focus more on this new venue and in this new path. And it's growing, and I say it's fishing season. The crappie are biting, so the people are renting.
Oh, wow.
And so, teaming up with people there, it's a new town, and I want to, the same way I dove into Dyer County in this town, now I want to do that somewhere else. And I want to, not that I'm saying this aside, I will still be here and I will still be at all those board meetings, but I want to do that somewhere new, and I have a desire to know those people and to help them. And what can I do, and how can I do it? And ultimately, how can you see God's glory in that? And so that's kind of where I'm at.
It's back to being willing to go.
Yes.
It's being willing to go.
Yes, for sure.
So let's just touch a little bit about words of encouragement and advice, and kind of warnings, maybe even of lessons you learned the hard way, things you wish you had known and you would have done differently. And let's take it kind of in two parts. Let's talk first to the woman who is sitting on her dream of owning a business, whatever that is. Maybe it's being an author, maybe it's baking bread, maybe it's owning a boutique, whatever. Maybe it's diving into real estate. There are so many opportunities for us as women. And I think it's, again, back to first praying. My friend my friend Becky and I, we travel some together, and we have this saying: we are notorious for letting Siri get us lost, and it's Siri's fault. It is not our fault. We did what she said, right?
Yes.
We took a left when she actually said right. But it's still her fault. And so Becky, we have this saying, and I'm usually the one driving, and Becky will say, "You drive, I'll pray."
Yes.
So I think,
with my friends, if I'm driving, they are definitely praying. I'm not the driver.
You drive, I'll pray, because we are notorious for ending up in some parts of town that it's very clear that we probably should not be there, especially, two females who are usually unarmed.
Yes.
We might could spray some hairspray in your face or something. But so talk to us about the woman who is sitting there and fearful of making the wrong turn. Fearful of making the wrong turn.
I think that will never really go away. The fear never really goes away. You just have to trust that you know yourself, and God knows yourself and knows your heart, and you have to pray about it and listen and pray about it some more. And I feel that too, you have to be a good steward of what God's given you.
That's a big one.
Doing your homework. Do your homework. Run the numbers. Reach out to people that know this world. We don't know these microphones, but we're trusting that the man behind the camera knows what he's doing. And so I think that for me, I ran the numbers. I ran them again. I prayed about them. I ran them again. I'm like, it is what it is. 2 + 2 = 4. If I can do this, if I can keep a 45% occupancy, then I know that I can pay these bills and I can do this. And really the cottages for me as an investment, owning your own business, you don't have someone matching your 401k. There's no one investing in your retirement but you. And
you've got to be willing to spend the money.
Yes.
And I think
you got to take the risk.
So yeah, gosh, I was the director of a small business development center for a long number of years. And I could see so many people, so many women would come into the office for assistance, and such passion and drive for what they were wanting to do, but not two nickels to rub together.
Right.
And obviously it takes startup investment.
It does.
But not every venture takes thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
You can start small. You can start small.
Well, and I'll be honest, I started the mustard seed with $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done this. That's exactly my number. I've started this venture, the Authentically You podcast, with $1,000. I was willing. I told God, okay, I'll do this, but I'm only going to do it for $1,000.
Well, and that's
you got to help me.
You got to listen to me, right? That's exactly what I have in my notes here. Is I think in part in doing your homework is you've got to come up with an amount that at the end of the day, if you lose this amount, if it goes belly up, this is the amount that I'm going to lose, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And as growth and investment starts, for me in the beginning, that was $1,000. For me with the cottages, it's quite a few more of those. But I thought, you know what, tomorrow, if I can't rent these and I have to sell them, and this is what I walk away with, I'm okay with that because I know that I did everything possible. And that's what I say about people with competition too, and different businesses, and people saying, well, there may be 1,000 other podcasts, or there may be 1,000 other boutiques in town and all that. No one can outwork me but me. And so I know that I can do that. I know that I know God in me. And I know no one else may know what he's telling me, but I do.
Right.
And, life
So let's talk
happens.
about that. Let's talk about that just a little bit. That's kind of the segue into really where I kind of wanted to close. So let's talk about how do you know when it is God talking to you? I mean, that's
Gosh, that is a hard one.
It's so hard because for me, like I said, for years it was him, and I kept saying to myself, because I had a bad experience with diving into a job that I kept telling myself was what God wanted me to do, and it wasn't. It was a career that I had always aspired to,
right?
And now it was my turn. It was my time, and so I just knew that was what God was blessing me with because I'd wanted it for all those years, and it was the worst job I'd ever had. I was miserable, more miserable than I'd ever been in my entire life, and oh my gosh. I realized after it was over with that it wasn't God telling me at all to go there, and I see so many nuggets of warnings that he was giving me that I really had the tables turned. I really was letting the voice of God be the voice of Satan.
Yes.
Telling myself in my mind, oh, that's just Satan trying to confuse you.
Yeah.
When really it was God trying to stop me.
Yes.
And so how do you discern the difference in the voices?
That's hard. It's really hard. I seen a meme one day. It was like, she's seen all the red flags and she was like, oh, look, a circus. It's so pretty. That is so hard. And it takes time sometimes. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of listening.
Takes a lot of prayer.
Listen is the word that I would say, listen. Spend time in quiet, listening. What is God telling you? Because it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah.
What he called you to do, a lot of times it's not actually. It's complicated. And I feel like for me, a lot of times when I strongly feel like God's calling me to do something, it's like there is no way I can do that, God. There's no way I can do that. Yeah. I'm spread so thin. I financially can't invest that amount of money. It's too far away. I don't know the people. And every time someone will show up that opens a door and I'm like, oh, okay, God.
Yep.
I see you.
Every time.
I see you. And so I think just spending the quality time listening to what God's telling you to do.
I think, not to interrupt, but I think it's what we feed ourselves too. I mean, when I decided I was going to do this, podcasting, I've stood in the middle of arenas with thousands of people in the audience and can speak and can sing, and it never even fazed me at all. But to sit at a table one-on-one, and knowing I wanted to do it in a video format as well. That meant cameras. That meant people watching.
Yeah.
That meant, that meant all of this.
I know.
Being visible, and it was like
out for everyone to see over and over again.
Right. You hit replay. Gosh, I was just like, this. No, what? God.
The vulnerability, of sitting here and knowing that anyone can pause this at any moment, and it's going to be like you're going to have that face that's going to be plastered on something that's just horrible.
I've listened to so many podcasters over the last months preparing for this and trying to learn from some of the better, in the market. And every single one of them, 100% of them have all said, gosh, the first one. Go back and watch my first one. And it was ugly. It was bad. It was, it's not going to be that way because we've got the expert over there behind the camera. We're just going to come out, how do you...
He's going to make us look fantastic, right?
How do you get better from the best? But,
yes.
But they all say that. And I have had to coach myself on that to remember that you have to start somewhere.
You do.
You have to start somewhere.
You do.
But you have to believe that you're following the path God has intended for you. And that's been my purpose all along for Authentically You is to follow that path and not the wrong one.
And I think, for you were talking about speaking, God gives us different gifts, and your gifts and my gifts may be different. And hopefully that you will reach women throughout all of your podcasts that will have different gifts and they'll be able to speak life into those women.
Right.
But for you, I do feel like being a good steward of that gift of speaking, and this is just a new avenue of it. And I feel like, I said earlier, like it's 2024, like
it's so fun.
Let's venture out into something new, and it is fun. And if it didn't challenge us, it wouldn't be as rewarding in the end.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Well, we have just about talked ourselves here today.
I feel like I could talk all day, actually. Me too. I'm like, but wait, I have more points to make.
Well, cover them if you want.
No.
So talk about, before we go into our closing question, let's back up where we were talking about those words of encouragement and advice and warning. Talk to me a little bit about working hard to find the financial freedom. Let's talk about that financial aspect of entrepreneurship. We touched on it a little bit about, you went into the mustard seed with $1,000. I went into this committing $1,000. But like you touched on a little bit, diving into real estate, and that's kind of the heart of this particular episode. Is I want us to speak to women who are sitting on their couch with episode after episode after episode of HGTV recorded, and they're just binging on HGTV. And
First of all, that's not real.
That's not real, correct. That is not real at all. But for that woman that loves to design, and knows that she could flip a house. Yeah. She knows she could flip a house. Yeah. She just doesn't know how to get the house to begin with.
I would say then find the people that do.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do all of this stuff, and I didn't know where I was going to find the money. I mean, obviously, I don't have the amount of money it takes to buy 3 houses and do 3 properties at one time. But I found someone, and it took a while. The first place I looked for finance was like, you're buying 3 houses and you're putting them on a acre in this section. There's a 1976 single wide trailer across the road that's got something growing up the side. Yeah, we're not going to let you borrow that amount of money. But I kept going until I found someone that did believe in me. Again, people buy you. They're believing in what you have and what you can present before them. And so I finally found, an investor. And so to the woman who's wanting to do that, then find another woman who has done it and ask her how she did it. There are networks out there
for that.
There are so many Facebook groups that I have joined. There's so many. If you just even Googled short-term female ownership or female investing, there are so many speakers. There are so many. I watched a live Facebook feed the other day, and it was this amazing woman that has invested millions and millions of dollars. She has been so successful, and she said, I'm going to go live for 45 minutes and you can ask me anything you want to. And I couldn't type quick enough. I'm like, how did you do this? Where did you get this? What's your lease like? I bet I asked her 50 questions and, she answered 3 out of them because there was 100 other women. But I'm like, those are the people. They want to give back into, they want to invest into more people. They want to do those things. So find those people. Find me.
Yeah.
I'm an open book. If you have a question, I'll be glad to help you. Maybe we'll partner and do it together, because I love growth and I love seeing women to do that. You know, thinking about biblical times, like when you really start looking at the Bible and, you know, women owning property and things like that, it wasn't a thing in the Old Testament. And so I really, in the beginning, I started trying to research that. And I think it was in Numbers that these sisters went to Moses and they were like, God, our father has died. And, you know, traditionally in Old Testament times, the property, the land would go to the sons. And then if there wasn't sons, it would go to brothers or uncles or something along that lines.
Women owned nothing.
They didn't own anything. And they went to Moses and they were like, we want this. We want our father's property. And so Moses went to God and he presented it and he's like, they're right. Give it to them. And so that was the first time. And then you see, and then I think again, in Proverbs 31:16, it said, she considers a field and buys it with the fruit of her hands, and she plants a vineyard.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, because, you know, it says it, you know, do it. Find the women that can help you.
Don't not do it because of fear.
If those women didn't go to Moses and Moses didn't ask God, there may be no record of women having property in the Bible, but there was, because they overcame that fear. Can you imagine in that times what it would have been like for women to go ask for that property? Like unheard of.
Yeah.
But they did, and God blessed it.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's just find people that will help you, and there are people
they are out there.
Yes,
they
there
are
are.
out there. The only thing, especially with how easy access there is to the information now.
Yes,
I mean, you literally can scroll your Facebook. More than likely, listening to this podcast is going to end up getting these kinds of ads on their feed.
100%.
Don't you think so?
Yes.
The women that are listening to this
podcast,
the women that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast are now going to, within just a matter of hours, start seeing ads in their feed for things we have talked about.
Yes.
The different types of things we have talked about. And one of them is going to be access to funding for investing in real estate.
Yeah. Take the leap. Do it.
Take the leap.
Believe in yourself.
Take the leap.
Yes.
I mean, there are steps, obviously, you have to take to, to prepare yourself for presenting even to an investor. But we're not saying jump up off the couch right now and go to an investor.
Do your homework.
We're saying do your homework.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is don't not pursue this dream you have because you're fearful over the money issue part.
Yes.
The money is out there.
Yeah.
It's not yours necessarily. It's not your family. And remember, this goes back to your family and your friends are not always your customers.
Yeah.
They're not. And they're not always going to
They're
believe
going to
in
think you're crazy.
They're not always going to believe in what you're doing. I
Yeah.
mean, my husband is still trying to figure this whole thing out. You know,
Yeah.
he's just like, podcast, what? You know, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we
I know.
doing? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's close with, this will be, this is the signature closing for all of the Authentically You episodes. It is our signature closing, our signature questions.
Okay.
Leave us with a scripture that is your favorite or a favorite or that has special meaning to you.
Well, for me, Matthew 17:20 has always been, if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can say unto the mountain, move, and it will move. Nothing is impossible for you. So my business is named the Mustard. A lot of people don't know because the cottages are named the Cottages of Kentucky Lake, but the LLC is called Seed Properties.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't realize that.
And that's something that's not out there. You know, it's, if you were to, I guess, go back and look at my LLC, it's called Seed Properties, and that's something that is this seed. But one that I would tell, I guess, other women listening is Philippians 4:6, and do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your request to God. And that kind of goes back to my airport moment of just like hitting face down in the pillow and praying to God and not knowing, and present those requests and be specific with them. You know, I prayed so long for the desires of my heart, but when I was specific, God said, here are these things. And so don't be anxious about that.
Right.
Give it to God. Right. And if it is from Him, He will continue to bless it.
And that's the key right there, is that if you're praying for it to be from Him,
yes,
not to just give me, God.
Yeah.
I want, God.
Yeah.
It's more about, I want for me what you want from me. Please give me, God, what you want from me. And that's
this is
where
the path
shift,
you want me to take.
That's where the shift was for me, was when I stopped my prayers. Because I've been a believer my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, been a believer all my entire life. But I was believing more in me.
I
was believing more in my faith in me and giving God credit for it. But it wasn't God. It was me following the steps Maleia wanted to follow, and it was God always running ahead to protect me from the crazy disaster I was about to walk into, you know. And then I can see it. I can see it in every near disaster. I can see him there every single time, standing in front of the train wreck that was about to hit me. So I think it's critical that yes, prayer is prayer, but it's praying for what God has for you, not what you have for yourself, and just continually asking God to give it to you. You know?
And on the other side of it, like I can say, there's no way I did this.
Yeah.
There's no way that Lindsay did this, because that's absurd.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It has to be.
It is.
From God. And so, you know, it's
Lindsay,
a blessing.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you are such a blessing. You are such a
I've
blessing.
loved it.
I hope that there's been a nugget of inspiration
Me too.
for just one woman that's either viewing or listening today to take the step to pursue her God, her Christ-centered purpose. And it may not be the purpose that you have 10 years from now. It may not be the purpose that you've thought for the past 10 years was your purpose, because we've all got different purposes at different times. But as long as you're following that Christ-centered purpose, you will be authentically you.
Yes. And reach out to us.
Yes.
Because we authentically love you.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Information on your businesses will be at the end of the podcast. And so keep listening and keep viewing for a few more slides, and you'll see the contact information for Lindsay's businesses. If you want a great vacation at Kentucky Lake in Buchanan, Tennessee, some beautiful cottages there to stay at. Or the Mustard Seed. If you need that beautiful new outfit, go by and see the seeds.
Yes.
At the Mustard Seed.
The girls.
Go by and see the girls.
Thank you so much,
Lindsay,
Maleia. I
thanks.
have enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
What a wonderful visit that was with Lindsay Ennis to hear the incredible story of her journey. Stay tuned and join us again in June for the next episode, where we will explore another incredible journey of another amazing woman. Until then, remember to keep the faith, chase your dreams, and trust in the divine Christ-centered purpose for your life. Thanks for listening. Are you ready for a relaxing getaway or a fun-filled weekend at the lake now that it's summer? Look up the cottages at Kentucky Lake on Airbnb. These 3 brand new tiny homes are available for short-term rental, and they're the perfect lodging near a beautiful lake. Need more information that you're not finding on Airbnb? Lindsay welcomes your call, and she will give you all the details. You can reach her at 731-445-1676.